It's been a while since I've done any speaking, so please bear with me. I guess the better part of the last 2 years have been pretty intense. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joe. Just Joe, it's fine. But it's been fun the last 2 years, finding out that I was pregnant and then seeing the pregnancy through and then having a child. So Daniel is 10 months old now, and I thought before I got pregnant that I could be pretty tired at different times, and then I thought during pregnancy that was that's how tired I was ever gonna get. And then Daniel was born, and I was like, oh my goodness, that is real tiredness. So I'm really hoping there's not another low that I'm waiting for there. I'm not sure if I can cope with anything more, but he's a happy guy and he may yell out, but yeah, he's all right. But lots of things change, yeah, when you welcome a new baby into your household. Some of you have experienced that, and some of you just imagine. But one thing that doesn't change is God. Right? God doesn't change. But I change because of the things that I'm going through. I change so that I see God in a different way. I understand different things about God, I think. Like you get new opportunities. In my sense, in my situation, I have new opportunities to just cry out to him and be like, I don't have any more to give right here, God. Like, you're going to have to figure something out, because I don't know how to keep my eyes open. I don't know what he's crying about. I don't know. And I've finding new ways in which I reach the end of myself. But in finding new ways and reach the end of myself, I find new ways in which God fills up where I am lacking. Because I didn't know that before. I didn't know before what it was to be truly tired. And you can tell me later that I don't know what true tiredness is yet. But for me, that is true tired, right? I didn't know that before. And God managed to make me not drop Daniel while I was feeding him, and I fell asleep, and we both fell asleep, and we were just sitting there, and we're both asleep, right? I didn't drop him. Thank you, God. Okay? We made it through. And, I see new ways in which I can understand God's delight in us as his children, because I delight in different ways in which Daniel is enjoying the world and seeing new things. And, you can just play games on repeat just because he's laughing. You wouldn't do that otherwise, but he's laughing, and so I'll keep flapping the towel, right? I'll just keep flapping the towel, and every time he laughs, I'm like, oh, it's so cute, I'll do it again. And, if you don't understand that, I look crazy, right? I just look crazy. But I can see this shadow of how God delights in us and finding and us enjoying the world that he has given us and seeing us learn new things and have new experiences. Now, they're not new things that I'm discovering, right? In the collective kind of understanding of the church, their understanding of God, this is not new. I'm not the first parent ever to exist. And actually, the things that I'm learning are not even new in my own head. I've heard other people say these things before, but because I'm experiencing them in a new way, I'm getting a deeper understanding. So the things that I had heard before suddenly find meaning in my life, because I'm like, oh, it's given them legs, right? So it's not that it was useless to know those things. I know not everything I'm going to say is completely applicable to everyone right now, but just take it in. That's really great that you can know these things. But, thanks be to God, as we go through experiences in life, these things that we learn and know about God can find new depths and new riches as we grow with him and just experience the wonderful things and sometimes the not so wonderful things that he has for us in life. One of the things that's changed a bit for me is that arguably some of my prayers have become less self-focused, right? Like I'm praying much more for somebody else. It's not that I never prayed for other people before, but there's a new focus, there's a new kind of intensity to the way that I'm praying for Daniel on his behalf. More that even though I have a tremendous responsibility for him, I can't I can't direct his steps. Half the time he doesn't know what I'm on about, right? So and he's going to do things in the way that I don't know what's coming next. I don't know when he's going to start crawling. I don't know when he might decide that, this particular toy is amazing. There are all these things that I just don't know. But in that, as I see daily my own inadequacy, as I sort of think, my goodness, I'm sitting there staring blankly because I'm tired, and he's playing over there, and he's trying to get my attention, and I just feel like a terrible parent because I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry, I'm too tired to give you anything more. In my inadequacy, I just really understand that I don't have the skill or capacity to give him everything he needs, and that God does. And so what I am learning in new ways every day is that God is enough. God is enough. And there's 3 really easy, short words to string together. They are simple enough for a small child to say, God is enough. And for them, it might mean that I was able to eat enough food today, or I got a piece of fruit and I really like that fruit, or blueberries, whatever, parents. Or it can be, as you go on in life, that there is greater and greater and greater depths of meaning to God being enough. And I think that this is one of those truths that we can learn about God, but we really have to learn it the hard way, through our experiences in life. We learn what it means that God is enough when we get to places where we have run out of options, where we have run out of energy, run out of things in ourselves to fill up the gap. In places of difficulty where we don't have enough, where we aren't enough, where we don't have the skill, we don't know what we even need. We learn that God is enough in places of grief and loss that seem irreversible. That is where we have this opportunity to learn what it means that God is enough. Now, this morning's passage, thanks for reading it, Finton, is simple. It is so simple. We enter a funeral scene, and a woman walks. And I can see in my mind's eye the pain and defeat in her body as she somehow puts one foot in front of the other, following along after the body of her dead son. This woman has no name except that she is a widow and her son has just died. Her name is grief. Her name is loss. Her name is hopelessness. And though surrounded by a throng of wailing mourners, somehow, I think she feels alone. Because there is something in pain, isn't there, that isolates us. There may be some who, or many even, who try to come near you when you're going through periods of pain. And there may be some who even care deeply for you. And yet you feel like you are the only one who knows how this is feeling. That there's nobody else who can understand. Only you can feel this particular pain. Pain pulls us into ourselves. It makes us want to build protective shields and walls to just wall off our vulnerabilities, those raw places of hurt. It pulls us. It wants us to draw away from relationship, draw away from places of community. This woman does not speak a single word. We only see tears rolling down her face. And yet she is surrounded by this crowd. Probably people who mean very well. People who know her and her family. It's a small town, this town that is named. And we have another crowd that approaches. There is a crowd surrounding Jesus. Now, this crowd is more triumphant. They're excited. They're waiting to see what Jesus is going to say next. He's been teaching. He's been doing miracles. All these important people have been coming to him and getting things done. It's amazing. We want to follow this guy. And so they've just left things and followed him. And he's just walking along with this crowd of people around him. Now, that crowd could have passed this one without a word. What business of it was theirs? It's not an important town. They don't know the people. Jesus, I don't think, would benefit from anything here. He's just come from healing a centurion's son. So, he's done good things for important people and everybody knows. But Jesus, he looks past the crowd that's surrounding him. And he looks past the crowd that surrounds this woman. He isn't distracted by his own importance, and he sees the widow. He sees her tears, and he enters into her pain, and his heart goes out to her. Don't cry, he says. How many people would have felt sorry for her? I mean, wouldn't your heart also go out to a woman who was burying her son, her young son? To any parent who had lost a child. But Jesus' compassion for her strikes at the depths of his being. He doesn't just feel sorry for her in a general way, kind of over there. He doesn't protect himself from her pain. Neither does, and I think some people do this, he doesn't make himself the focus of her pain either. In his compassionate care, he forgets himself and reaches out. His concern and focus is this woman, her pain, her loss. Sometimes we, and I just say I can forget that we have a compassionate God, a compassionate Jesus. It's something that we hear a lot in church, and we say it a lot, like compassionate, loving, like those kinds of words about Jesus. But in the times when things are really hurting, I can get really wrapped up in that pain, right? You know, pain that draws us into ourselves. And that pain can become the focus. It could be a new pain, you know, something that's happened, or it could be one that you've carried with you for years and you've just never dealt with it. But that pain can become the reason or the excuse for the way that you routinely behave and respond when you say you can't handle certain situations, why you can't deal with certain people, you lash out in different times and you break down. I've shared before that I was bullied in primary school, and I'm 42 now. Primary school was a long time ago. I feel like I have dealt with that pain now, but I was 30, I think, before I really fully dealt with it. And I was 25 when I began to deal with it. Before that, that pain ate me up in such a way that I actually found it really hard to have real relationships with people. Because what ended up happening is I was so focused on protecting myself. I was focused on myself, right? Not on the other person. You need to focus on the other person to have a good relationship, right? But I couldn't. I was just thinking all about myself. What they would think of me, what I would say, all me. I couldn't do it. And I blamed, like, those kids, those other 10, 11-year-old kids, who really didn't know what they were on about, really. I don't think they intended that in 20 years' time I'd still be dealing with this. No. But I was, and I blamed them. And I made it so that it was okay that I was behaving in this way because of that. But what happened around the time that I turned 25 is that I found that I could be vulnerable with someone. And that someone was Jesus. And that is where the healing of that pain began slowly over time. Only then. You see, the thing is that our pain can be legitimate, right? That I'm not saying that, like, you don't ever feel bad about things and nothing ever goes wrong. Definitely, things get done, things are wrong, you get hurt. There's all sorts of things that happen. But the thing is that in that pain, when it doesn't feel safe to let anyone in, sometimes, often, what we do is we not only don't let anyone else in, we also don't let God in. We take our eyes off Jesus too, and we forget his loving compassion. But this story, as short and simple as it is, shows us the heart of Jesus, because in the deep grief of this woman, though she speaks no word and nobody speaks on her behalf, Jesus goes to her and says, "Don't cry." Now, she is right to cry. There is nothing wrong with her tears. There is real loss in the death of her son. It is the right time to mourn. Jesus is moved by her situation because it is a loss. But his words to her are not a rebuke for her tears, but a promise for what is to come. He will dry her tears, not because her grief is inappropriate, but because he will remove the source of her grief. And so Jesus reaches out his hand and he does something unthinkable for a Jewish teacher. He touches the dead man. Now this action, according to Jewish Old Testament law, would make him unclean, which means that he wouldn't be able to go into the temple. No, others wouldn't want to associate with him because all they would need to do is touch him or touch something else that he had touched, and they would also be unclean and unable to come before God, unfit to come into the presence of God. That's what unclean means in this sense. Death is unclean because it is the antithesis, the complete opposite of who and what God is. God is life. You cannot bring death into his presence. But instead of that death flowing into Jesus and contaminating him, his life flows out. And that man is raised to life. And the widow's mourning is turned to joy. Death to life, mourning to joy. And that's it. That's the story. And it's an incredible story that Jesus raised a person to life. He did an incredible thing for this woman. But you know, and I know, that there is far too much pain and suffering in our lives, in the lives of people we love, all around the world, for this story to kind of be true in the same way all the time. Because we don't see every bad situation reversed. You know, we could say that the completely innocent babies, they're born with all sorts of difficulties. Some of them are not born at all. I'm talking about cancer and house fires and car accidents, natural disasters, wars, all of these things where we feel we can objectively say bad. Right? We're not arguing about whether these things are good or bad. Like, they're bad. Everybody agrees. They land in the bad basket. So what is happening? Does God just have like favorites? And some people he goes, right, for you, I'm going to make everything go well. For you, I don't know, like, you didn't say hello to me yesterday. I hope you can tell by the way that I'm saying this, that's not what's happening. I don't have a complete answer to this, and I don't think anybody does. Though I will say that regardless of what you believe about God, regardless of whether you think the Christian God is God, or some other religion's God is God, or there is no God, or some variant in between, you also have to deal with this question of why there is evil and suffering in the world. There is no system of thought or belief that allows you to ignore this. So please don't think that it's only Christians or generally religious people who have to deal with the issues surrounding this. Now, as I said, I don't have a full answer. I also, even if I did, don't have enough time. And there are many parts to the answer given in the Bible. But I want to highlight two that this story addresses, because we're in this story. Now, first of all, the first of the two is that God enters in. Yeah. We see Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. We're about to celebrate this at Christmas. Jesus, who is fully God, fully man, second person of the Trinity, God taking on the fullness of humanity. God become man who enters as a vulnerable baby who has to learn and grow. And not live just any kind of life, but a life actually of suffering and poverty. It just says Jesus there was nowhere for him to lay his head. He was kind of homeless. He definitely, of no fixed address, we could say, for the 3 years of his ministry life. He knew pain and loss, and he grieved. There is no other religion that claims this. No other religion claims a God who is both transcendent, which means over all, far away, powerful, in control of it all, who's both transcendent and immanent, close, with you, knowable, both majestic and humble, both glorious and suffering, both strong and weak. And yet, our God is. But God doesn't just enter this world generally and become a human generally to experience this world. He enters into lives, the pain, the suffering of the people around him, like this woman who says not one word, who doesn't have to explain to Jesus what she wants, how she feels, why she feels the way she feels, and yet Jesus absolutely, completely understands and is deeply moved by her situation and her tears. And Jesus is deeply and utterly moved by all of the hurts in our lives. Not just of the people in this room, but every single individual alive in this world now who has ever lived or who ever will live. Because God is infinite, and so his compassion is infinite, and his knowledge is infinite. All this means that there is nobody left out. He's not going to run out of bandwidth here. There is nothing that he says that's below my notice, because there's just no space. I've got other more important things to do. Infinite depth. He can delve all the way down to the bottom of you. And infinite breadth. All of you, all of everyone, everywhere, at all times. Perfect understanding. You are never alone in your pain. Unless you want to ignore God. But otherwise, he is right there with you. And there is no one else. Not the best parent, not the best spouse, not the best friend, not even somebody, a psychologist that you pay to listen to you. Nobody can take on that sort of bandwidth for just one person, for you. So don't wall God out of your life. Don't try to hold your hurt away from him. Don't think that it is beneath his notice or that he does not care. He does. More than any of us will ever understand. God enters in. And secondly, God sorts it out. Now, Jesus simply touches the dead man and he is raised to life. He just touches him. I don't know what just happened. He just touches him. I just touched this. Scroll. This is not distracting. No. Okay. There is nothing that is bad in this world or in your life that God does not have the power to release, to restore, to reform. There is nothing that is too complex, and there is nothing that is beneath his notice. God is not scratching his head wondering what to do. God has the power to sort it all out. Now, sometimes God works through the ordinary means of life, a healthcare system, a jobs database, a friend who provides support. And sometimes God works through more supernatural ways, super, above, nature, the ordinary course of things, supernatural. This story is one where there was a supernatural way that God sorted it out. And it is good and right to use all the means that God has provided in this world. But science, medicine, finance, knowledge, Google, all the things, none of them can actually replace the power of God, right? There are ways that God might use his power, but they cannot replace him. They are only supportive and powerful because God made them so. God is the antithesis of death, of lies, of destruction, of brokenness, of hate. And in his presence, these things cannot survive. And yet, they do. Even the man that Jesus raised from the dead would one day die again. The widow would die. Every person in both of those crowds would die, including Jesus. God has and had the power to sort out all that is wrong with the world, all the pain, all the suffering, everything that is broken. He has the power to make everything perfect, but would be swept up and away in the fixing. Just think back on this week. Have you been the cause, whether accidentally or purposefully, of anything wrong in the world? Did you cause difficulty to anybody else? Pain to them? I'm going to guess that the answer is yes for pretty much all of us, because that's just how things work. We might not think of it this way, though, because I know I do. I cast myself as the innocent in my story. I am the one whose every action is justified. I am the one who really, deserves better from everybody else. I am the one who is the hero in my head. But if we get just a little bit honest with ourselves, I think we've got to admit that we at least contribute to our own pain. And we definitely have a negative impact on other people. But in the death of Jesus on the cross, he didn't just look with compassion. He took on our pain and suffering, right? He took on all that is wrong with the world on himself. He bore it on the cross. And this is so much more than the way we may simply look with pity on somebody, or even cry on their behalf, or cook them a meal. I'm not denigrating any of those things. I'm saying this is more. And this is where the compassionate love and power of God join, so that, as Tim Keller says, God can end suffering without ending us. God's compassion is not an empty feeling. It's infinite, not only in its depth and reach, but also in its power. God is not one who simply looks sadly, wringing his hands, wishing there was something that he could do to make things better. He is one who has acted decisively and historically, lovingly, perfectly to put an end to all that is wrong, whilst also making a way for all who trust in him to be part of the renewed, restored perfection that he has promised. But right now, we live in the in-between. Theologians call it the now but not yet, which is, I always feel like theologians should have fancier words, but that's what it is. We live waiting for God's promises to be fulfilled. And in this time of waiting, sometimes we see glimpses of God's dazzling kingdom light. And other times, it feels like we are just waiting in utter darkness. I can't give you the answer to why particular things happen or don't happen, or why some people get reasons for things and other people don't. But I can say that it is not because things have gotten out of God's control, and it's not because God has decided he suddenly does not care. And this is where I ask, is God enough? In my own pains and difficulties, is God enough? In the suffering of my friends and family, is God enough? In the calamities I see in this world, is God enough? Even if he doesn't answer yes to my prayers, even if he doesn't give me reasons, is God enough? Is God enough if it takes me months and years to recover from different pains and hurts that have been caused in my life? Is God enough even when there's no possible intervention of any sort that will help? Because God is right here with us. He is not sitting on a cloud comfortably and just zapping different people, zapping different situations into being or non-being. He has taken on the suffering himself. He's the only God who claims to do that. He doesn't speak empty words, but he can do and has done everything to make a way for all who believe to be with him in the perfection that he has promised. Are his promise and his presence enough? The only way I know is to find out. Like pretty much anything else in life, whether it's a medication or a friend or a new employee, the only way to know whether they will work, whether there were any side effects, to find out what they're like, is to let them into your life. It's the only way. Through the hard times, let him in and press into him. You will never find out by holding yourself away, by ignoring him, by running. Let God approach. Let him draw near. Lean into his power and his love. Listen to the words of powerful promise and comfort that he is speaking to you. It is only in that, Isaac. It is only in that, when you do that, that you will find that he can take the weight of your pain and he can bear you up. We need to taste and see that the Lord is good. Let's pray. Our Father, I'm just so aware, Lord, that there are so many people in this room who've gone through so many different things. And Father, I know that you want to draw near to them. Lord, I pray for any of us who are holding you at a distance, whether generally or from a particular thing that is causing us pain. Father, will you draw near again? Will you soften our hearts? Give us enough courage just to take one step closer, to allow you one step closer, that we will be able to taste and see more of how good and gracious and enough you are. We pray this in your name. Amen.